Okay, welcome back to those of you guys that are here. We're going to be talking about enlightenment, or what is enlightenment. This is a topic that's going to help you understand the goal of getting to the enlightened mind, and this will actually help you to more easily navigate your way to enlightenment, where if you didn't understand what it was, you wouldn't be able to actually navigate your way to it. So I'm going to share with you teachings to be able to help you understand what enlightenment is. This is part of chapter 3 in the volume 1 of the book series, if you guys are reading that book. So the first thing to understand as it relates to the mental state of enlightenment is that it's very challenging for the unenlightened mind to understand what enlightenment is because it hasn't experienced it yet. It's kind of like, could you describe what chocolate ice cream tastes like? If you've never tasted chocolate ice cream, it'd probably be very challenging for you to do that. So once you're experiencing enlightenment, as you're getting closer and closer to it, you understand more about what it is. So as we talk today, you guys are welcome to ask any and all questions about enlightenment and what enlightenment is, but just understand that by the end of our conversation, while you're going to know more about what enlightenment is than you do right now, you're not going to know everything about what enlightenment is by the time we're done with our conversation. As you get closer and closer to enlightenment, you'll understand it more and more. So this conversation is important to be able to help you understand what enlightenment is, but you're not going to understand it, every last little thing about it until you're actually getting closer and closer to it and then actually experiencing it for yourself. So ask any and all questions that you like. Enlightenment is the ultimate goal of the path to enlightenment. And by understanding what enlightenment is, it'll help you more readily navigate your way to it. All right. So what enlightenment is it's a mental state that you attain in this life where the mind is peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. You can attain enlightenment during your life, or you can even attain enlightenment at death too. But obviously you're not interested in banking on that. You'd like to do the work during this life to be able to experience enlightenment in this life. An individual that's in the human realm can attain enlightenment, and beings in the heavenly realm can attain enlightenment too. But oftentimes those beings are quite complacent, so they tend to not do the work to be able to get to enlightenment. So they're just experiencing these pleasant feelings, so they tend to not be motivated and encouraged to get to enlightenment. But here in the human realm, it's kind of like the ideal existence because we experience all three feelings of pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant. So we tend to have built-in motivation to get to enlightenment because we don't like those painful feelings, the anger, the sadness, the stress, the anxiety, the guilt, the shame, the fear. We don't like those. So we have the motivation to be able to get to enlightenment. We're in the heavenly realm, even though they can get to enlightenment, they tend to not have that motivation. So you can get to enlightenment in this life, and then for the rest of your life, your mind will be peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. It's impossible for an enlightened mind to ever experience anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, boredom, loneliness, shyness, resentment, jealousy, even the slightest displeasure. It's physically impossible for the mind to experience those any longer because you've uprooted the conditions that are causing these to arise. So the mind's going to have eliminated 100% of all discontentedness. It'll be concentrated, it'll be steady, it'll be unshakable. It doesn't matter what happens in your life. Even if your mom dies, you wouldn't be sad or upset. And it's not this that you love your mom. That's not the reason why you're sad and upset. You're going to learn with the Four Noble Truths why you're experiencing this sadness. It's not because of love. Love doesn't cause sadness. Sometimes people think, well, if my mom dies and I'm not grieving, doesn't that mean I don't love her? No, that's not what's producing the sadness. It's not the love at all. So you're going to understand what's causing these feelings so that then you can see that even in a situation where your mom dies, you can maintain your joy. You're not joyful because she died. You're joyful despite that she died, right? Despite that someone close to you has died, you can maintain your joy. You can have appreciation and gratitude for this person, the time that you had with them and spent with them. You don't need to feel like the carpet's been pulled out from under your feet or that you've been chopped off at the knees. So by the time you get to enlightenment, there's nothing that's going to shake up the mind. It's steady and unshakable. By the time you get to enlightenment, you will have escaped the cycle of rebirth. You're no longer going to be reborn over and over and over again. And the enlightened mind, it's calm and relaxed yet it's attentive and alert. Sometimes when people think about calm and relaxed, they think about kind of like dull and lethargic, but calm and relaxed doesn't mean dull, lethargic. It just means that your mind's calm and you're relaxed, but yet the mind is attentive and alert. It's focused, it's concentrated. So that's what the qualities of the enlightened mind are experiencing, among other things. In order to get to enlightenment, the mind is experiencing freedom from craving, anger, and ignorance. These are referred to as the three poisons. You're going to learn about that this evening if you come to the evening session at 6:30. This is where you're going to learn about these three pollutions or three poisons or three unwholesome roots that are causing the mind to experience the sadness and anger and frustration and all those other discontent feelings. This is what's plaguing the mind from a high level. So you're going to be understanding that this evening. But even this morning, I'm going to be sharing with you the cause of these discontent feelings. So by the time you've gotten to enlightenment, you will have freed your mind from craving, anger, and ignorance. You would have eradicated these pollutions out of the mind. You would have realized non-self, which you're going to learn about as well, and you will have dissolved the ego. The ego is like the arrogance, the pride, the boastfulness, the measuring and comparing yourself to other people, either putting yourself above people or putting yourself below people. This is detrimental to the mind. So you will have purified the mind of those things. So while enlightenment is this mental state that you attain during this life, the path to enlightenment is a purification of the mind, where you're purifying the mind of these pollutions and the conditions that are keeping it in the unenlightened state. Some people refer to enlightenment as this, ultimate bliss, or they refer to it as happiness. I don't refer to it that way, because when you're in the jhanas, which are these preliminary phases that the mind goes through before you get to the first stage of enlightenment, which you're going to learn about in this retreat, you experience ultimate bliss, where the mind's really blissed out. But that's not actually enlightenment. Enlightenment, the mind is experiencing happiness. It's unconditioned happiness, but I wouldn't describe it as bliss or this excitement that comes into the mind during the jhanas. So some people, when they're experiencing the jhanas are so much different than anything else that you've ever experienced in your life. But oftentimes people think that they're enlightened when they are in the jhanas. So if you have experience the jhanas, when you notice that bliss coming into the mind, someone is like, oh my goodness, this must be what enlightenment is. And they start describing enlightenment as that, not realizing that they're not enlightened yet. Sometimes you hear people say that enlightened beings still experience anger and sadness and frustration and annoyance and things like this. And this is because those individuals are experiencing the jhanas. They think that they're enlightened, and they're describing what they're experiencing as enlightenment, not realizing that they're not yet enlightened, that they're still in the jhanas. And that's why people will describe enlightenment as ultimate bliss. And this is why some people refer to enlightenment as someone still gets annoyed or disappointed or frustrated or agitated and things like this, because they're not yet enlightened, but they think they are. So this ultimate bliss that is experienced, that's what the jhanas are, but it's not what enlightenment is. So enlightenment is this peaceful, calm, serene, and content mind with joy, where the mind's just always peaceful. Sometimes when I say that, people say, well, that sounds like you don't have any emotions at all, that you just kind of like mute and you're almost like a robot. This isn't actually true. As you're getting closer and closer to enlightenment, you'll see this joy springing up, this unconditioned happiness. You'll just always be in a pleasant mood. You're just always in a good mood. So as I mentioned at the beginning, it's very challenging for the unenlightened mind to understand what enlightenment is without having experienced it. It's kind of like, could you ever explain chocolate ice cream without having tasted chocolate ice cream? It would be very hard for you to explain chocolate ice cream without having ever tasted it. So I can teach you and I can help you understand what enlightenment is, but you're not going to understand it fully until you're making your way towards it and you're starting to get glimpses of what enlightenment is like. And that's where the jhanas come in. As you're getting to the jhanas, which we're going to talk about in this retreat, it's kind of like the light bulb is flickering and kind of giving you these glimpses of what enlightenment is like. And you start experiencing a few minutes or a few hours of what enlightenment is like. So these jhanas, they're preliminary phases that the mind experiences, and there's this ultimate bliss. But don't be confused, that's not enlightenment yet. The mind is definitely experiencing some improved qualities of mind, but there's still more work to do to be able to get to enlightenment, where the mind's completely liberated and free. Some of the advantages of getting to enlightenment are that the mind's peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy permanently. You're no longer going to experience anger or sadness or frustration or irritation or annoyance. If you think about all the time you've ever spent being angry and feeling guilty and shameful or lonely or bored or any of these other kind of feelings, you'll get all that time back. This is one of the reasons why enlightened beings can be so productive in the world. You know, if you're a business person or if you're a politician or whatever it is that you choose to do, if you're enlightened while you're doing that, you're going to be so successful at whatever it is that you do. If you're a stay-at-home mom or dad, or you're a helicopter pilot or whatever it is, you'll have so much focus and concentration because your mind's not going to be experiencing this shaking up, and you're not going to experience this anger and frustration. You're not going to be absorbed in chasing after your selfish desires, that your mind can just always be peaceful and joyful. You don't need to waste all that time and all that exhaustion and energy being angry and frustrated and irritated. You'll have this high degree of focus, concentration, memory, and clarity of mind because you've eliminated the pollutions that are causing the mind to experience the lack of concentration. So when you get that pollution out of the mind, it'll perform more optimally. So you'll experience the focus, concentration, the deep memory, and the clarity of mind. You eliminate all these feelings in others: the sadness, anger, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fears, boredom, loneliness, shyness, jealousy, resentment, stress, anxiety. By the time you get to enlightenment, you don't even have the slightest dislike towards another being. Right now, there might be certain people that you like and certain people that you dislike. By the time you get to enlightenment, you won't even dislike other beings. You might disagree with the decisions that they make, but you can still love the individual. Right now, you might find it challenging to do that. But by the time you get rid of this pollution, you'll be able to live harmoniously with all beings. You'll have this deep wisdom about the path to enlightenment and how to get to enlightenment, and you'll be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful towards all beings. You won't find that you'll ever be able to be impolite, unkind, unfriendly, and disrespectful. You will have understood and trained the mind to the point where you realize that it's very unwise to ever be impolite, unkind, unfriendly, and disrespectful. And your mind will be incapable of being impolite, unkind, unfriendly, and disrespectful to others. You just won't be able to do it. The mind just physically won't actually be able to do that. And that's because the deep wisdom of the teachings have been soaked in. You've trained your mind and you've eradicated any pollution that's in the mind. You'll notice that your personal and professional relationships will really blossom and improve. You'll be able to conduct them with ease. Right now, there's probably certain people in your life that you get along with really, really well. You've never had a harsh word between you and them ever, perhaps. But then there's other people in your life that you might find very challenging to deal with. Maybe your brothers and sisters, or your parents, or maybe your boss, or something like this, right? And oftentimes what we do in the unenlightened state is we blame those people and we think that they're the problem. But what you're learning on the path, and you're about to start learning in a moment, is that the problem is actually inside your mind. And when you eradicate that, even though the other person might be doing things that are unwise, you can maintain your contentedness. You can maintain your politeness, your kindness, your friendliness, and your respect. That even though they're disrespectful, you might be able to, or you would, as your mind is enlightened, you would be able to be polite, kind, friendly, respectful in all situations. You might choose to no longer go around that person for any particular reason, but you would be able to be respectful no matter what, even if they're being disrespectful to you. Okay, so these are some of the advantages of getting to enlightenment. These are the core central teachings that you're going to need in order to get to enlightenment. You're going to be learning these as part of this retreat: the 3 universal truths, the 4 noble truths, the Eightfold Path, the 5 precepts. I'm going to introduce you to the Brahma Viharas, but you can study this in volume 1 and in other programs that I teach. I'm going to introduce you to the 10 fetters here in a moment, and we're going to be exploring 3 of them in detail as part of this retreat, because you're going to need to eliminate the first 3 to get to the first stage of enlightenment. The 7 factors of enlightenment are something that I also teach in various courses and retreats, where it's a fine-tuning of the mind. Sometimes people think the 7 factors of enlightenment are to determine if you are enlightened or not, But in reality, these are actually another tool that the Buddha introduces to you to fine-tune the mind. It's kind of like when you first get on the path to enlightenment, it's like this big log, right? And you're trying to make this sculpture, and you're chucking off these big chunks of wood when you first get started, when you're learning the core fundamental teachings. But then as you're trying to fine-tune the mind a bit, you kind of might go in and kind of use almost like a surgical knife to go in and surgically put the eyelashes on the sculpture or the wrinkles in the skin. And if you're making a piece of artwork, you're going to need these different tools at different times. So the same thing's true about when you're training your mind. You're going to need different tools at different times. And the 7 factors of enlightenment are a tool that you're going in and you're fine-tuning the mind. And then you're going to need extensive meditation training as well. And as you're learning these and all the other teachings, as I've shared with you, you're learning, you're reflecting, and you're practicing. You're never believing the teachings. You're looking to get to wisdom. And you can only do that through investigating, through reflecting, independently verifying, through practicing. You can't believe your way to enlightenment. These are the 5 lower fetters, and then there's the 10 higher fetters. A fetter is a shackle and a chain and a ball. This is what a fetter is. This is how they kept prisoners trapped in a particular area in ancient times. So when the Buddha describes these 10 pollutions that he discovers in the mind, he refers to them as fetters because they're keeping the mind trapped in the unenlightened state. So everything that the Buddha taught, even the core fundamental teachings, they're guiding you to eliminate these 10 fetters. This is kind of the underlying thing that the Buddha is guiding you to eliminate and eradicate from the mind. And as you're putting together that Eightfold Path and all the teachings you're going to learn as the core fundamental teachings, you're working to eliminate these 10 fetters in one way or the other. But then when you start noticing that the mind's experiencing the jhanas, you start focusing on these fetters a lot more closely. So I will teach you these fetters as you go through the various courses and programs and retreats. But just understand that even the core fundamental teachings, something as simple as the 5 precepts, is helping you eliminate some of these fetters, or the Eightfold Path, or all these other teachings. This is kind of the underlying thing that you're working to eradicate. And when you first get started, you don't necessarily study these too deeply because you're spending time learning like the 3 universal truths, the 4 noble truths, the Eightfold Path, the 5 precepts. You're learning about meditation. You're trying to get your arms around the core fundamental teachings, but this is what's underlying all of that. And then as you put together those core fundamental teachings, you start focusing on these 10 fetters more closely. And in this retreat, we're going to focus on the first 3 very closely. By the time we get to Thursday and Friday, I'm going to be explaining to you 1, 2, and 3 in detail, explaining to you what they are, what the symptoms of them are, how to eradicate them with the tools and techniques that the Buddha shared, and then how to know when you've actually eliminated them from the mind. So you'll be able to see when I describe these that you're experiencing these. And every unenlightened mind is going to have these fetters. These are the 5 lower fetters, and then there's the 10 higher fetters. And you're going to be learning these throughout your journey to enlightenment and learning how to eradicate them. And you also see how they're affecting you in an unwholesome way, in a negative way. As you're eradicating the fetters, your mind is going to be moving through these 4 stages of enlightenment. The names that we refer to them as is stream enterer, once returner, non-returner, and arahant. The easy way to refer to them is the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th stage of enlightenment, but the Buddha gave them names: stream enterer, once returner, non-returner, and arahant. The reason why he refers to it as stream enterer is because just like the log enters a stream, it will eventually get to the ocean. It's just a matter of time. The same thing is true that once you get to the 1st stage of enlightenment, as a stream enterer, you will eventually get to enlightenment. It's only a matter of time. So once a log enters a stream, it's going to get to the ocean. Once an individual becomes a stream enterer in that 1st stage of enlightenment, they're going to get to enlightenment. It's just a matter of time, either in this life or some future life. So that's why it's called a stream enterer. Somebody has entered the stream. We call it a once returner because if somebody dies in that stage of enlightenment, they're going to come back to the human realm one more time, and they're going to get to enlightenment in that next birth. So perhaps you were a once returner in your previous life. You don't know necessarily. Maybe this is the life that you're going to get to enlightenment. What a non-returner is, the third stage of enlightenment, this isn't a being that dies in that stage of enlightenment. They're going to be reborn in the heavenly realm, and they're going to get to enlightenment from that realm. But you're not interested in banking on that. What you would like to do is get to the fourth stage of enlightenment, which was referred to as arahant. This person has eliminated all the 10 fetters. And this was a term that was used during the lifetime of the Buddha to represent someone whose mind is pure and has eliminated all the 10 fetters. And then there's something called a Buddha. A Buddha isn't a stage of enlightenment. It's a unique individual. A Buddha is an arahant. They've eliminated all the 10 fetters, but they've done that through their own efforts, that they didn't have any teachers or any guides. And I gave you guys 3 criteria of what a Buddha is when we talked yesterday. So these are the 4 stages: stream enterer, once returner, non-returner, and arahant. And then there's this unique individual that is very rare in the world called a Buddha. And the last one that the world currently is aware of existed over 2,500 years ago. The way that, I don't have it in here. Okay, I took that out. So the way that you get to the first stage of enlightenment is you eliminate these first 3 fetters. Let's go back here. These first 3 fetters is how you get to the first stage of enlightenment, is that you eliminate personal existence view, doubt, and wrong behavior and observances. And there's some other teachings you need as well. That's what we're going to be focused on in this retreat. The way to get to the second stage of enlightenment is that you've already eliminated the first 3 fetters, and then you thin out number 4 and 5. You've just kind of thinned them out. You don't have as much sensual desire. You don't have as much ill will, and the mind has thinned that out. The way that you get to the third stage of enlightenment is you've eliminated all 5 of the lower fetters, and that's where the mind is now in the third stage of enlightenment. The way to get to the fourth stage of enlightenment is you've eliminated all the 5 lower fetters already, but then you also eliminate all the higher fetters as well. And this is something that you gradually work towards. So these fetters are almost like a personal development plan, helping you to see what the problems are and helping you to see what to address and what to eliminate from the mind. And you use this for personal growth and personal development. As I was mentioning yesterday, you're not going to call up mom and be like, "Hey mom, guess what? I'm a stream enterer. Aren't you so proud of me?" Or you're not going to put it on your Facebook page, right? Like, "Hey, I'm a once returner. Can you believe that? That's amazing," right? This is for your own development. You might talk to me or your teacher about that. You might be like, "Hey, David, I think I've eliminated sensual desire, but I'm really not sure. Can you help me to determine whether I've eliminated that or not?" So these might be things that you're talking about. Or you might say, "David, I think I'm a stream enterer and I feel pretty confident about that. Maybe can you help me to determine if I'm a stream enterer or not?" So these are things that you might talk with your teacher about for personal development, but outside of that, these aren't things that you get a merit badge to walk around or a certificate to prove that you're one of these stages of enlightenment. It's for your own development. So talking about what a Buddha is, yesterday I talked about these 3 criteria of what a Buddha is, which is they attain enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. They dedicate the rest of their life to sharing their independently discovered teachings so that then countless people can get to enlightenment during that person's life. Then they preserve their teachings in such a way that countless more people can get to enlightenment after their death. Those are the 3 main criteria of what makes a Buddha a Buddha. But then there's these other criteria too, that a Buddha has a profound memory to recall countless details about their current life and their past life too. This is the quality of mind that allows them to get to enlightenment by themselves. That for you, your mind probably can recall the last 5 years or maybe 10 years of your life pretty closely. But when you think about your childhood, you probably just have spotty memories about what happened in your childhood. You can kind of remember a few things, but not very clearly. And the reason why is because your mind is like a hard drive. It has a certain capacity, maybe 500 gigabytes or 1 terabyte or something like this. And when you fill up that capacity, you need to delete old files in order to store new files. And when you delete those old files, there's kind of some spotty memories from your childhood and things like this. So you have a limited capacity. An individual who is going to become a Buddha, they have an unlimited capacity to what they can remember about this life and their previous lives. And what they do is they accumulate wisdom over multiple lifetimes, that they put it all together in their last life, and they figure out how to get to enlightenment by themselves without any teachers or any guides, because they have that deep, profound memory. And that's what allows them to get to enlightenment by themselves. But then it also helps them to then be able to teach during their lifetime, that they can know the teachings inside and out, backwards and forwards. They can remember their students' lives, the things that their students tell them about their personal life. A Buddha can remember those things and then provide you guidance and help along your journey to enlightenment. So this is a quality of mind that is very unique about a Buddha's mind. But everything else about the human mind between a Buddha and an average human being, it's exactly the same thing. It's just that they have this extra quality of being able to remember countless things in their previous lives and in their current life. A Buddha can quickly determine the condition of a person's mind by spending time with that person, and they can observe their mind, and they can see the fetters. They can observe the fetters in this person's mind, but they don't do that for any malicious purposes. They only do it in order to help their students. And this is the reason why I was sharing with you guys that it's actually helpful if people don't know who a Buddha is, because if everybody knew who a Buddha was, they would be on their best behavior potentially when they're around that person, and it would render this ability useless. That by a Buddha being able to observe their students' mind and being able to see the qualities of their mind, they can actually help them more readily with teachings to be able to help them. So a Buddha can quickly determine the condition of an individual's mind by just spending time with them and observing their mind. And then a Buddha has a deep practice of their own teachings. They're a living, breathing, walking example of their teachings. Not only are they sharing teachings with students in classes like this, where they would be teaching and helping people to learn the teachings, but they would also be teaching through their actions, that they're doing what they teach. They're not teaching one thing and then doing something completely opposite. They understand as a Buddha that their students are observing them and learning through the way that they talk and the way that they interact and the way that they do things in the world. So a Buddha is going to be a living, breathing, walking example of their teachings, and that way their students can actually learn from that and the way that they interact in the world. So these are some of the criteria and the main criteria of what makes a Buddha a Buddha. And you'll find some places that will tell you that everybody's a Buddha and that you are a Buddha. And when you get to enlightenment, you will be a Buddha and you have Buddha nature. But the Buddha never said that. That's what people say today. Right? So you would like to learn what the Buddha taught. So this is what a Buddha would teach in order to help you understand what a Buddha is. Okay? Oops. There we go. So here's a way to understand what enlightenment, that you're not enlightened. If you're experiencing any discontentedness, which are conditioned feelings, which you're going to learn about here in a moment, if you're experiencing conditioned feelings, you'll know that you're not enlightened. This conditioned happiness is conditional happiness, where you can only be happy when certain conditions are met. If it's sunny outside, I will be happy. If my bank account is this, I will be happy. That's what conditional happiness is. By the time you get to enlightenment, you're beyond that. You can be happy all the time. It doesn't matter what your bank account is. It doesn't matter what the weather is. You can just always be happy. So if you're noticing that your mind kind of goes up and down with pleasant feelings and painful feelings, where sometimes you're happy, sometimes you're sad, sometimes you're irritated, sometimes you're lonely and bored, this is how you know that the mind is not enlightened. So these are some of the conditional feelings that an unenlightened being is going to experience. So this is a good way to know that you're not enlightened. If you have craving to tell other people that you are enlightened, then you know that you're not enlightened. One of the best ways to know someone's not enlightened is they will tell you they're enlightened. So if somebody walks around and says, "Hey, by the way, did you know I'm enlightened?" You just know that they're not enlightened, right? So you're not going to be interested in even have any kind of desire or wanting to go around and tell people that you're enlightened. Your mind's going to be so peaceful and so joyful, you don't need to go around and prove to other people you're enlightened. In that situation, oftentimes people are craving admiration. They want people to admire them. Well, if you're enlightened, why do you need people to admire you? Just go enjoy your peaceful, joyful mental state. Why do you need to come around here and tell everybody that you're enlightened? So someone who's going around boasting and being arrogant and prideful that they're enlightened, Well, you haven't eliminated the ego yet. You're not enlightened, right? So someone who's claiming to be enlightened, they're not actually enlightened. So if you feel an urge to go around and tell people that you're enlightened, you're not enlightened yet. So there's still work to do. If you notice that there's complacency or lack of motivation or initiative or a lack of enthusiasm or a willingness to do something, your mind's not yet enlightened. Sometimes you might feel dull or lethargic. And this is normal in the unenlightened state because the mind can kind of swing, where you notice some days you have a lot of energy and you're high energy, and then other days your mind can swing to the other side where you just feel dull and lethargic and complacent and lacking motivation and enthusiasm. But by the time you get to enlightenment, your mind's in the middle, that you don't experience exhaustion anymore, that your mind's never tired. You will get sleepy where you need to sleep, but you won't feel exhausted. Right now, if you're carrying around certain pollution in the mind, you might feel like heavy bricks on your shoulders or on your feet, and it's really challenging to kind of wake up and go forward in life on some days. It might feel like you're kind of tromping through the mud on your way to work or something like that. But by the time you get to enlightenment, your mind is uplifted because the pollutions aren't burdening your mind. So this radiance and this brightness can shine through where you don't feel exhausted and tired. You don't feel dull and lethargic and complacent any longer. You'll be able to maintain your enthusiasm and maintain your energy consistently throughout your whole day. You won't have these highs and then these lows throughout your day. And this is from eradicating the pollution of the mind. So do you guys have any questions on what enlightenment is? This is our little break to talk about the excursion, but let me see if you guys have any questions on enlightenment yet. Any questions? Anything online that you guys would like to ask about? We had some questions online earlier and I missed them, so I had to ask them at break, or answer them at break. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions here. Okay, so I've got this little break in here, just a little 2-minute break so that we can talk about the excursion, see if you guys would like to go. It's up to you whether you go or not. I organize these for you guys to be able to go out and spend time with each other. But if nobody's interested in going, that's fine too. Today's excursion, if you guys would like to go, and of course, this is a time of free time, so you guys can go do whatever it is you'd like to do. But if you would like to go on the excursion, what I had planned is to go to this hot springs out in Sangkapang, which is about 45 minutes outside the city, where they have these places where you can soak in the hot water from under the earth. They bring it right up from the water. There's even a geyser there. There's food and things like this. So is there anyone who's interested in going out to Sangkapang, to the hot springs? Okay, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so then I would be number 6. So I'll organize some transportation and we'll talk at the end of class to kind of organize going to get food and spending time together and going out to Sangkapang. So I just like to check in so I can know to organize transportation and what transportation I'll need. Okay. So let's talk about the Four Noble Truths, because this is the very first teaching that you need in order to really get on the path to enlightenment. Without understanding the Four Noble Truths, you wouldn't be able to get to enlightenment. You wouldn't even be able to make the first step on your journey to enlightenment. So this is where I start students, really learning the teachings of the Buddha. This is where you can have a breakthrough. Even the Buddha describes it that way. He calls it a breakthrough, that you can finally, once and for all, understand what's causing all these discontent feelings and understand how to eliminate them as well. So right now, if you don't know what's causing your sadness and you think other people are causing your anger and your frustration, you're not going to ever be able to solve it. So this is where you're going to learn what's causing these feelings so that then you can actually solve them and eliminate them from the mind. So we call it right view, or establishing right view. This is the Four Noble Truths. And when you're learning the Four Noble Truths, you need to first learn the 3 universal truths, because these are building blocks to help you understand the Four Noble Truths. We call them the 3 universal truths and the Four Noble Truths because the Buddha knew that they were truth. I know that they're true. Other people know that they're true. But in order for you to know that they're true, you would need to learn them, reflect on them, and practice them. And that's where you're going to get the real benefit, when you know that they're true. So that's why you're not interested in believing what I'm going to share with you. I'm going to show you how you learn. I'm going to teach it to you. Then I'm going to show you how to reflect on it, to independently verify these. And then I'm going to show you how to practice them. So starting with this first one, the universal truth of impermanence. Let me teach it to you. It'll only take me like a minute or two to teach it to you. Then we'll reflect on it. Okay, so understanding the universal truth of impermanence, the Buddha explains that there's conditioned objects that arise, they change, and they fade away. And you can look around the world and see that there's conditioned objects that arise, they change, and they fade away. That there isn't this steady, constant, fixed state. Okay, that's what the universal truth of impermanence is explaining, that all these things around you in the world are all impermanent. They're constantly changing. They're temporary. Okay, so this is a little bit of learning about the universal truth of impermanence. So now what you start doing is you start reflecting on it to try to determine if it's true. Because if it's a universal truth, that means it's universally true and you can independently verify it. So what you do is you take something that you're familiar with, like this human body, and you ask yourself, is this body permanent or is it impermanent? If this body is permanent, that means it stayed the same your entire life and it never changes. If it's impermanent, then that means it's been constantly changing throughout your life. So what would you say? Is this body permanent or is it impermanent? It's impermanent, right? It's constantly changing. We get bigger, we get fatter, we get grayer, we start losing our hair, we get wrinkles, our teeth grow in, they fall out, new teeth grow in, our hair gets longer, we get cavities, all different kinds of changes, right? Moles, pimples, different things like this, right? The body's constantly changing. Okay, what about your relationships? Would you say your relationships in your life are permanent or are they impermanent? If your relationships are permanent, that means that they've stayed the same your whole life, that everybody you met from the very beginning of your life, they've stayed with you all the way through your life. That's permanence. If your relationships are impermanent, then that means you've had people coming and going in and out of your life your entire life. So what would you say? Are your relationships permanent or impermanent? They're impermanent, right? Okay, well, what about your bank account? Is your bank account permanent or is it impermanent? It's impermanent, right? It's going up and down and up and down. Some people go up, up, up. Some people go down, 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 right? This is the impermanent nature of our bank account. What about the weather? Is the weather permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent, right? It's constantly changing, right? It's not permanent. So you can look around the world and you can keep doing this. If this is what you need to do to be able to see this is true, independently reflect on this. Walk down the street and look at the sidewalk. You'll see a crack in the sidewalk. That's impermanence. You'll see the color of the sidewalk change. That's impermanence. You'll see the height and the texture and the shape of the sidewalk changing. That's impermanence. Right now, there's a certain sound in here, but then there's a tool over there that sometimes comes on too. The sounds are impermanent, right? It goes up and down. You can see the wall of the temple, that there's marks and there's holes. And at one time it was painted nice and white, I'm sure, but now there's marks and holes in different places of the wall. This is all impermanence. The floor, you can see marks on the floor. This is all impermanence. So everything you see around you is all impermanent. What you see, what you hear, what you smell, what you taste on the tongue, the things that come in contact with the body, and even your thoughts. These are all impermanent. Okay, so it's very important that you deeply soak this impermanence into the mind. So if you need to walk around the world and see this for yourself, do that. Investigate the world. The Buddha is describing to you the way the world is. He's not describing to you the way the world should be. He's describing to you the way the world is. These are the natural laws of existence. And what he's explaining to you is the world is impermanent, that these things around you are not permanent. But there are things called unconditioned objects. An unconditioned object, it doesn't arise, it doesn't change, and it doesn't fade away. Enlightenment is an unconditioned object. That by the time you get to enlightenment, your mind has been purified, that the conditions that are causing conditioned feelings have been eradicated. Now your mind is unconditioned. And this is why you don't have the arising of feelings, the fading away of feelings, because your mind is unconditioned. So enlightenment itself, that's why enlightenment is permanent, because it's an unconditioned object. The natural laws of existence. These are unconditioned objects. They don't arise, they don't change, and they don't fade away. This is why the teachings of the Buddha are timeless. That what he explained 2,500 years ago is just as applicable today as it was 2,500 years ago, because it's the same natural laws. People's memory of those teachings, the books that people documented them in, those things are impermanent. Those things have changed. But the natural laws that he taught, they're the same natural laws that he taught that existed during his lifetime that exist today. And that's why his teachings will guide you to enlightenment today, just like they did 2,500 years ago, because these natural laws haven't changed. They're timeless. They're unconditioned. They don't arise, they don't change, and they don't fade away. Okay, so this is impermanence, that conditioned objects, they arise, they change, and they fade away. And all the material objects around you in the world, they're all conditioned objects. They're all impermanent. This second universal truth is called discontentedness. Some people refer to this as suffering. You might hear people refer to this in different Buddhist teachings. They might say the Buddha taught to eliminate suffering. What they're doing is they're translating the word dukkha over to suffering. This is the original word in the Pali language that the Buddha used and is documented in the Pali Canon is this word dukkha, and people will translate that to suffering. Myself and some other people, we translate it to discontent, discontented, and discontentedness. And the reason why is that if you understand what the Buddha taught about dukkha, you will see that this word actually more accurately represents this word dukkha, because he taught that dukkha is a pleasant feeling, a painful feeling, and a feeling that is neither painful nor pleasant. So I'm going to explain to you what discontentedness is, and then I'll circle back and explain to you why I don't call this suffering. So when the Buddha talks about dukkha, he talks about a pleasant feeling. Feelings like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. This is what the unenlightened mind experiences. Then there's a painful feeling like sadness, anger, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety. These are very painful to experience. Then there's feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant. And for me, I put boredom and loneliness here, but some people say that's quite painful for them. So you could put that in the painful category if you like. But shyness is a good example. It's not painful, it's not pleasant. Or say that you were sitting next to somebody that you didn't know on public transportation, and your body is touching their body. You might say, it's not painful, it's not pleasant. Your mind's kind of dissatisfied. You're kind of uncomfortable in that situation. Right? This is neither painful nor pleasant. Okay, so these are the three feelings that the Buddha is sharing that the unenlightened mind experiences. Pleasant feelings, painful feelings, neither painful nor pleasant. So now you don't believe this universal truth because he's explaining what the unenlightened mind is experiencing. You don't believe this. You directly reflect. You know that your mind is unenlightened. Are these the three feelings that you experience? Do you experience pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant? Are there any feelings that you experience that doesn't fit into one of these three categories? Because if there's a feeling that you experience that doesn't fit into one of these three categories, this isn't a universal truth, because this is universally true across all beings, that you will see these same three feelings in this unenlightened state for a human being, right? Animals experience all three feelings as well, but then in the other realms, they experience either exclusively pleasant feelings or painful feelings or things like this. But here in the human realm, we experience all three feelings. So you can do that internal reflection. And if you have a feeling that you feel like doesn't fit into one of these three, you can let me know and we can talk about it during the question period. So an enlightened mind is beyond these conditioned feelings. In the unenlightened mind, an unenlightened being might see that it's sunny outside and they will get happy, they will get excited based on the condition that it's sunny. But then when they go take a shower and they come out and they see it's raining, they might be sad or frustrated or irritated. The enlightened mind is beyond this. They're already happy before they even wake up and see the sun. They're already joyful before they ever see the sun. And then when they see the sun, it's like, sweet, let's go outside. Let's go for a hike. I'm going to call my friends, see if we can go outside and go do something at the park. And now maybe you go take a shower and you come out and now it's raining. When it's like, oh, okay, well, it's raining. I guess I'll stay home and read a book, or I'll go to the mall, or maybe I'll invite my friends over for dinner. You'll just do something else and you'll be able to maintain your joy. Where in the unenlightened state, you'll base your inner feeling on some condition, like the sun. And now when that sun changes, because it's impermanent, that condition of the sun changes. So that means your feeling changes too. So in the unenlightened state, there's these conditional feelings where the mind's going up and down and up and down. But in the enlightened mind, you're beyond all of that, that your mind's no longer forming inner feelings based on some condition. Okay? And you're going to understand this more when we talk about the Four Noble Truths. So here with discontentedness, I refer to this as discontent, discontented, or discontentedness. I don't use the word suffering because to me, suffering explains those painful feelings really well. The sadness, the anger, the frustration, the stress, the anxiety, the guilt, shame, and fear. Yeah, you might say you're suffering in that situation. But when you're happy or excited, you probably wouldn't say you were suffering. Or if that person you don't know comes and sits next to you in public transportation and your body's touching their body, you probably wouldn't say you were suffering. Your mind's discontent, right? It's kind of shaken up a bit. The mind is experiencing discontentedness. So if you use the word suffering the way a lot of people do in the world, you're only understanding 33% of what the Buddha taught on this topic. That means you're missing 66% of what he taught. So if you're missing 66% of a teacher's teachings, how are you ever going to be able to get to the goal of enlightenment? You need to be able to see these conditional pleasant feelings as part of the problem, that it's a conditioned pleasant feeling. It's not unconditioned happiness where you can just always be happy. It's only conditional. That means if my mom does this, if my bank account is this, if the weather is this, if this thing occurs, then I can be happy. And the more wants and the more expectations that you have, the less and less time you can be happy because it's conditional happiness. But by the time you get to enlightenment, all those conditions are wiped away. You've eliminated the mind forming its inner feelings based on some condition. And now you can just be happy all the time. If your bank account's this or your bank account's this, still be happy. If your mom does this or she does that, you can still be happy. If the weather is this or the weather is that, you can still be happy, right? That's what unconditional happiness is. And that's what the enlightened mind is experiencing. So you need to be able to see that these conditioned pleasant feelings are part of the problem. Because as long as the mind's forming conditioned pleasant feelings, it's going to also experience the painful feelings. So you need to be able to understand the word discontent, discontented, or discontentedness as fully representing the full spectrum of feelings that the Buddha is describing here with this universal truth. Then there's this universal truth of non-self, which I'll explain to you here and kind of introduce it to you a little bit, but we're going to be exploring this in detail. We're going to spend an entire class on this in this retreat. What this universal truth is this is the solution to helping you solve the pollution of personal existence view. That first fetter that I introduced you to just a moment ago, that first fetter of personal existence view, that first pollution, what it is the unenlightened mind falsely believes and has the misunderstanding and the confusion that this body and or this mind is you. The mind is clinging to a certain self-image about the body and a certain self-identity in the mind, thinking that this is who you are. And now if you cling to this body thinking that this is who you are, if you spill spaghetti sauce or chocolate ice cream on your clothes, you might get embarrassed if you're in a social situation. Or if you get a wrinkle or a gray hair, or you start losing your hair, you start getting a little fat, you might feel less of a person. Or if you're in a situation where somebody compliments you and says, wow, you're so handsome, or wow, you're so beautiful, that shirt really brings out the color of your eyes. You might get these conditional pleasant feelings because you think that this body is you. And now you get these pleasant feelings. But because of impermanence, it's only a matter of time before somebody says something degrading and disparaging about the appearance. They might say, oh, you look so horrible, or you look this way, or you look that way. And now you're going to experience painful feelings. If you think this body is you, you're going to experience the painful feelings. So if you cling to this self-image, thinking that this is you, and wanting this image to look a certain way, you're not going to appear that way permanently. So now when you experience change, the mind doesn't feel comfortable with that. Or there can be a self-identity in the mind based on your culture, your nationality, your ethnicity, maybe your sexual orientation, maybe your job or occupation. You might be clinging to this as who you are. Like, I am a Brit, or I am an Aussie, right? Or I am American, or I am Japanese, or I am Brazilian, or I am Italian, or any other I am, right? Or I am a police officer, or I am a lawyer, or I am a kind person, or I am a boyfriend, or I am a girlfriend, I am a husband, I am a wife. Well, if you cling to this as your identity and this is who you are, as long as you're in that role and you're doing that thing, you might feel pretty good. But then when things start changing, you're going to get frustrated or agitated or feel painful feelings. So for example, if you're in a relationship with a boyfriend or girlfriend, and as long as you guys are together, you might feel great. But then when you break up, you're no longer a boyfriend, you're no longer a girlfriend. You might really struggle during that time. Or if you've gone through a divorce and you no longer are a husband or you're no longer a wife, you might really struggle during that time where you feel like you want to hurry up and get right back into another relationship. Or if you've ever had a job or occupation and you identified with this job as who you are, like I am a police officer, or I am a lawyer, or I am a Buddhist teacher, when you stop doing that job, you might have felt like a part of you was missing and a part of you was gone because you identified with that's who you are as a person. Or if somebody says all police officers are friendly and kind and helpful and they're such great people, you might feel these pleasant feelings. But then it's only a matter of time before you hear people say something degrading or disparaging about the occupation that you're doing. And if you identify with that's who you are as a person, now they're talking about you, right? And now you get frustrated, you get angry. Or say you're at a dinner table in a restaurant and 2 tables over, they're talking about your nationality and they're saying degrading things about where you're from, about Belgian people or people wherever you're from, right? And now they're talking about me, right? All Chinese people are this way, or all Americans are that way, or all Brits are this way, or all Brazilian people are that way, right? And now they're saying degrading and disparaging things. Well, if you identify with that's who you are as a person, now you're going to feel miserable because they're talking about you. And what the Buddha is saying is none of this is you. That's what the universal truth of non-self is. He's saying there is no you there, that this body nor this mind is you. It's not who you are as a person. But the challenge with this personal existence view, this fetter, this pollution, is the mind's going to think that this is you, and it's going to cling to this. And now your mind can easily get shaken up. Sometimes people feel like they don't even know who they are anymore. I need to go on this journey to find myself. I need to find my true self. Sometimes people come to Thailand looking for their true self. They're going on this journey to find themselves, but they can never find it. They never find themselves because there is no self. That's the universal truth of non-self. They might find a new job. They might find new hobbies. They might find new activities. They might find new friends. But none of that stuff is you. It's not who you are. But if your mind has the misunderstanding or the confusion or the unknowing of true reality and thinking that this body or this mind is you, then you'll get shaken up in these situations where you experience change. So you can liberate your mind from all of this by realizing non-self, by understanding the universal truth of non-self, and then training your mind. Because you can't control what other people say and what other people do. When you're at that restaurant and somebody 2 tables over is talking about your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your job or occupation, or anything like this, you can't control what that person says, but you can control your own mind. So if you eradicate this personal existence view from the mind, you can be joyful and peaceful no matter what people say. That's on them. If they are hateful towards people of certain culture or ethnicity or sexual orientation or certain nationality, that's on them. If they're hating on those people, it's affecting them. But don't allow that to affect your mind. You can get liberated from that, right? So you can train your mind to do this. The first part of training your mind is to understand intellectually that there is no self. And then you need to reflect on it and start to be able to see the truth that there is no self. And that's what I'm going to help you do now, is start reflecting on this, just like I helped you with the other 2. So the way you reflect on this to be able to see that there is no self is think about yourself and how you viewed yourself when you were a child, when you were a teenager, early adulthood, and now? Have you viewed yourself exactly the same way throughout all those stages of your life? Your personality, your character, have you viewed yourself as being exactly the same all that time, or has it been constantly changing? What would you say? It's changing? Yeah, you kind of view yourself differently in all those different stages of life. That's one way to verify it. Here's another way to verify it. If you had your arm chopped off and you only had one hand and one arm, are you less of a person? He's saying no, shaking his head no. What do the rest of you guys think? Are you less of a person if you only have one hand and one arm? No? Okay. So intellectually, you know that this body isn't you. Right? You just said that to yourself, that this body isn't you. Because if this body was you, when I asked you that question, if your arm was amputated and you had only one hand and one arm, are you less of a person? You'd say, yeah, I'm less of a person. But intellectually, you know that this body isn't you. But the mind is confused. The mind has this misunderstanding that when somebody says something degrading or disparaging about this body, you get angry or frustrated or irritated because you think this body is you. This is the confusion and the misunderstanding that the mind has. Now, here's a third way that you can independently verify that there is no self. Point to yourself. Where are you? Can you point? Nobody's pointing. So maybe you guys don't know. Maybe you know that there is no self, right? Usually what people do, they'll point here or they'll point here to their head, right? So if you point here and you say, this is me, you got to look at what are you pointing to? You got to look at literally what are you pointing to? If you point here and you say, this is me, what you're really pointing to is a shirt. That's what you're pointing to. So say we take off the shirt and I hold it up in my hand. Is this you? Is that shirt that you're wearing? Is that who you are? Is that who you are, that shirt? No, the shirt's not you, right? Okay, so we throw away the shirt. We know that that shirt's not you. Okay, so where are you? Someone might point. And now you need to look at, what are you literally pointing to? Well, you're pointing to skin. So, okay, we take off the skin and we hold up the skin and you point to the skin. You say, is that you? Is that who you are? That skin that you got right there? Is that who you are? No, that's not you, right? Okay, so we throw away the skin. Where are you? Point. And then someone might point. It's like, okay, we've got ribs, we've got muscle tissue, we've got organs, we've got fluid, we've got all these different things, these different structures. What part of that is you? And the conclusion that you come to, if you look at it very closely, is none of that's you. But again, the mind's confused. It has this misunderstanding. It doesn't realize true reality, that this body isn't you. It's just physical structures, right? So these are the ways that you can independently verify that this is true. And you can intellectually understand that this body nor this mind is you. But then you've got to put it into practice, right? It's one thing to sit here in a classroom and be like, yeah, this body's not me. This mind's not me. But then when somebody says something degrading and disparaging about your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your nationality, that's where the real work begins, right? So there's certain proactive things that I can help you to learn, which we're going to study as part of this retreat, to help you proactively train the mind to eliminate personal existence view. So when you're in those situations and somebody's saying something degrading or disparaging, you can be peaceful and joyful and not be affected by what other people say or do, because you can't control what other people say or do. You can only control your own mind. But with this pollution of personal existence view, you're not going to be able to control your own mind. It's going to get angry. It's going to get frustrated. So when you eradicate this pollution through realizing non-self, you'll be able to control your mind. Okay? So some people don't understand the universal truth of non-self when I first explain it to them, and that's okay. There's plenty of people that don't understand it. Maybe you're kind of understanding it, but not truly, right? So this is just an introduction to it. We're going to get much deeper into it, but don't feel like if you don't understand this one right away that there's something wrong, because a lot of people have challenges understanding it because there's so many things in society that are trying to convince you that this body is you, right? We get a name at birth. that we're labeled like, I am David. I remember going into school and sometimes I would meet somebody named David and I would get angry. I'm like, you're not David, I'm David. How can he be David? I'm not David. I'm David. He can't be David. Or if somebody else had blonde hair, I used to get angry when people had blonde hair. I was like, they're trying to look like me, right? I would get angry about this kind of thing, right? So this is like the mind clinging with its personal existence view. So if you don't understand this 100% right now, it's okay, because your mind has been conditioned to believe that this body is you, or that this mind is you. So as we go in the retreat, we're going to explore this more deeply, and it's going to take you a long time to think about this. There's some students who spend a good year or so thinking about this, reflecting on it, implementing the teachings to be able to eradicate personal existence view before you actually eradicate it. It's going to take time to eliminate it from the mind. These others are pretty straightforward: impermanence and discontentedness. But do you guys have any questions on any of these three that you would like to ask? Okay, let's see what we got here. Miriam's online. She's asking a joke, or she's telling a joke. She says, "Is an enlightened politician an oxymoron?" But no, you can have an enlightened politician. If all of our politicians were enlightened, wow, it'd be really wonderful. Right? It'd be really wonderful, because they wouldn't have any kind of selfish desires. There wouldn't be any corruption. They would be looking to create laws and create a society where people can live together in harmony. So the more enlightened politicians that we have, the better. The more enlightened police officers and lawyers and all these people, food servers, taxi drivers, it would make a wonderful society. For some people who live here in Thailand, or that you're visiting here in Thailand, you can feel it's quite peaceful here, right? Not everybody here is enlightened, but people are on the path, right? And they're practicing. This is why we have such a peaceful society, such a joyful society here in Thailand. I don't know if you guys know that Thailand has the phrase, the land of smiles, right? It's really easy to smile when you're joyful inside. It's really easy to access your smile. So the more people that are enlightened, like you see in Thailand, more and more people practicing the teachings, it's quite a peaceful place to exist. So the more that these teachings come into the Western world, we'll see more and more improvement throughout all of society. But it's always important to focus on your own development and your own growth. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions here, so I'm going to move on to the next thing, which is helping you understand this particular word, and then I'm going to share with you the Four Noble Truths so you can have that breakthrough to understanding what's causing your discontent feelings. This word, craving, desire, attachment, also expectations, wants, holding, grasping, clinging. We define this in a unique way within Buddhist teachings, and it's describing a certain aspect of your mind. What this is describing is the mental longing and strong eagerness, the mind chasing after the objects of its affection, wanting the next new shiny object waiting around the corner to provide some kind of lasting satisfaction. So the mind chases it and chases it and chases it and chases it. It thinks that this external thing is going to provide some kind of fulfillment, so it chases after it. It's trying to get those pleasant feelings, is what the mind's doing. So if you were ever walking in the mall and you saw a brand new pair of shoes and you're like, brand new pair of shoes. Yes. Oh, they're so amazing. I just got to have those. Or a new mobile phone or a new computer or a new video game. And you're just like, I just got to have that. I want that so badly. That's what craving, desire, attachment is. The mind longing, yearning, pulling after the objects of its affection. Some people say they feel like they're being pushed with craving, desire, attachment. So have you guys experienced this? Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah, you know what I'm talking about, right? Like, I just got to have that boyfriend. I just got to have that girlfriend. If I can just get a boyfriend or girlfriend, everything would be perfect in my life. If I could just get more money, that's what I need. More money. That's what's going to make my life better. Oh, that bigger house. I need that bigger house or that better car, right? Just mind's longing. Just wants. The grass is always greener on the other side. And then you get to the other side, and you're like, it's kind of the same color as over there, right? So this is the mind's craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning, the wanting, the expecting things, okay? So these are all building blocks to now help you understand the Four Noble Truths. Here in 4 simple statements, you're going to understand the problem in the unenlightened mind, the cause of that problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward of how to completely solve this. Okay? So these are the 4 simple statements. And then you learn them, you reflect on them, and then you practice them. And that's where you see the real results. So the first noble truth is explaining the problem. The problem is discontentedness. Everyone that is unenlightened will experience discontentedness. That's those conditioned pleasant feelings, painful feelings, neither painful nor pleasant. The conditioned feelings. Essentially, the problem is that the mind's going up and down, up and down, up and down. It can't maintain its calmness. It can't maintain its composure. It's going to go up and down at different times based on certain things. So this is the problem. The first noble truth is explaining that discontentedness is the problem. The second noble truth is explaining the cause of this problem. Discontentedness is caused by our own cravings, desires, attachments, because the mind wants everything to be permanent when everything in the world is impermanent. Okay, so I'm going to say that a few times, and I'm going to give you some examples to understand it. So discontentedness, those pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant, is caused by the craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning, the chasing after the objects of your affection. The mind's wanting things to be permanent, but yet it lives in an impermanent world. So if the mind's chasing, wanting something to be a certain way, if it gets that thing, then it experiences pleasant feelings. So happy, so excited. Yes, I got my raise, $50,000 a year. Oh, I'm so rich. Yes. All right. Wonderful. Everything's perfect. So the mind's chasing after that money, and it thinks that that's what's going to make it happy. Or it chases after a boyfriend or girlfriend. And if it gets what it wants, it gets happy. It gets excited. But it's conditional happiness. It's conditional excitement. It arises, it changes, and it fades away. And ultimately, the mind ends up in the painful feelings, the sadness, the anger, the frustration. So for example, say you got together with a boyfriend or girlfriend. When you first got together, oh, everything was wonderful. So amazing, such pleasant feelings, lots of happiness, lots of excitement. Someone showing you affection. They're calling you. They're checking in on you. They're inviting you to dinner, to the movies. You guys might be experiencing intimate contact together. You're having great conversations. You're going to the park on walks. Oh, it just couldn't be better. Everything's amazing from the beginning, right? But then as the relationship goes on, there's all these expectations, all these things that you want and they want, and the list gets longer and longer. And then you guys start getting angry and frustrated and irritated and annoyed with each other. And now you break up and the relationship's over. And now you're feeling lonely or bored. You're missing this person, or you're feeling angry or sad or frustrated. This is because the mind's craving for this relationship to be permanent. It's wanting boyfriend or girlfriend to be permanent, but they're impermanent. It's not the love that's causing this anger to arise. It's because the mind's craving for them to be permanent. The same thing is happening with grandma and grandpa. When they die, or moms or dads or brothers and sisters, and you're grieving, you're sad, you're frustrated, the mind's craving. It's wanting permanence. It wants grandma and grandpa to be permanent, but they're impermanent, just like everything else around you. The unenlightened mind doesn't understand it lives in an impermanent world. It's craving things to be permanent. So if you've ever been to a wedding and you've cried or been grieving at a wedding, this is impermanence. The mind is seeing your brother, your sister, or some other person go off into the world with somebody, and you might feel sad inside because you're holding on to them and you're wanting them to be permanent. They're your friend, they're your mom, they're your dad, they're your brother, your sister. Now they're going off in the world with someone else, and you're confronted with this impermanence that the mind doesn't understand. So you might grieve at a wedding. Or if you have ever been dropped off at college and you were sad when your parents left, or your parents were sad maybe when they dropped you off at school, at university, then this is the mind craving and holding on, having attachment, right? It's craving for this to be permanent when in reality it's impermanent. Or say you've ever bought a brand new car and you got all these pleasant feelings when you got the brand new car, and now you drive it around town, everybody's looking at you. Wow, you're so successful. Look at that brand new car. Oh, it's so nice. And then you park it at a store, you go inside, and then you come out and there's a scratch on your car. You get angry, you might get frustrated or agitated or annoyed. It's not the scratch that's causing you to be angry. And it's not the person who caused the scratch. They're not making you angry. What's causing the anger to arise is your craving. It's your desire. It's your longing, your yearning, attached to this car, wanting it to be permanent, craving for it to be permanent when this car is impermanent. We're not talking about what's wise or unwise, because it'd be wonderful if nobody ever scratched your car, right? But that's not the world we live in. We live in an impermanent world. This car is going to get a scratch. The tires are going to need to be changed. The window washers are going to need to be changed. The paint's going to fade. The upholstery is going to fade because it's impermanent. This car has arisen, it's going to change, and it's going to fade away. And it's going to no longer exist because this car is impermanent. But if your mind is craving permanence, when you see that scratch, you'll be angry, you'll be frustrated, you'll be irritated. So your mind is causing this through its own craving, desire, attachment. What this second noble truth is explaining to you is that your mind is causing your own discontentedness. All those conditioned feelings are being caused by your own mind. Even though in situations where you've been angry before, you might have adamantly argued with somebody, trying to convince them that they're doing something wrong and they're making you angry. You firmly believe this. You're going to need to be able to see the truth through your own reflection, that your mind is actually causing this itself. Because if you keep falsely believing that other people are causing you to be angry, what you'll end up doing is you'll push people away. And you're going to think that that solves the problem, because the mind's falsely believing that the problem is external. And you'll push people away out of your life, or you'll push the situation out of your life. This is called aversion, that you're pushing away, thinking that that solves the problem. But it doesn't solve the problem, because when you push people out of your life, you just get irritated and annoyed about something else. It's just a matter of time. If that was the real problem, or if that was the cause of the problem, when you push the person out of your life, you'd be peaceful for the rest of your life because you've just solved your problem. But you didn't solve your problem. That's why you keep getting irritated over and over and over again. Or if you misunderstand the cause of the problem, you thinking that it's somebody external that's causing you to be angry, you'll be bitter and harsh and hostile to that person through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. And now that person might choose to leave out of your life. So that doesn't solve the problem either. Being bitter and harsh and hostile and fearing people into doing what it is you want them to do, that's not going to solve your problem either. And then the third thing that the unenlightened mind will do when it misunderstands the problem is you'll put your expectations on people. You'll try to control people to do things your way, because the mind's trying to get its cravings fulfilled. The mind just thinks, if I can get my cravings fulfilled, everything will be perfect because I'll get those pleasant feelings. But those pleasant feelings are unsatisfactory. They're unsatisfying because they're temporary. They're going to arise, they're going to change, and they're going to fade away. So if you keep allowing the mind to crave and long and yearn and chase after things, then you'll be happy sometimes, but other times you'll be angry and frustrated and agitated. If you'd like to get to the permanent peace and permanent joy, you're going to need to eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments. And that starts with understanding what the real problem is, which is the craving, desire, attachment. That's what the second noble truth is explaining to you. Okay, so now that you've learned this second noble truth, now start reflecting on it. This is how you independently verify it. What I've just shared with you is your mind is causing your own discontentedness because it's craving, it's wanting something, it's expecting something. And when it gets what it wants, it gets pleasant feelings. When it doesn't get what it wants, it gets painful feelings. So now you take a situation where you were recently angry or frustrated or agitated or annoyed. It might have been this morning, it might have been yesterday, it might have been last week. At that time, with a lack of wisdom, you might have been trying to blame other people for the feelings that you were experiencing. But that was just because of lack of wisdom, not because you're a bad person. But you might have been blaming other people or looking for somebody to blame. But now, with this new wisdom, with these fresh eyes, think about that same situation and look at it, reflect on it. What was it that your mind wanted that it didn't get? There was something that you wanted, something you expected that you didn't get, and then you got angry and you got frustrated. And if you can see that, then you can verify this second noble truth. If you can't see it and you can't understand it, that's where you can ask for help when I open up for questions. So for example, say your mom calls you up on the phone and she says, hey, I'm going to come visit you this weekend. I know you got that new house. I would like to see your new house. You might get so excited. Your mom's coming. Yay, this is going to be so exciting. Mom's coming. Oh, she's coming on Saturday. I can't wait to see her. But then on Friday, she calls you up and she says, oh, sorry, I can't come. Something came up. Oh, you're so angry now. Maybe you're frustrated. Maybe you're agitated that she's not coming, right? You allowed the mind to get those conditioned pleasant feelings based on the fact that mom was coming. And then when things changed because of impermanence, now you're frustrated and angry because you didn't get what you wanted. Mom didn't do anything wrong, right? She just changed her plans. That's all, right? So if you can see the craving, desire, attachment is the cause of the problem, now you can actually get to the solution, which is the third noble truth. Okay, so look at your different situations, reflect on it, and be able to see that your mind is causing these discontent feelings itself. The third noble truth is explaining to you the elimination of discontentedness is possible by eliminating craving, desire, attachment. If you can learn how to eliminate your longing, your yearning, your craving, your desire, your attachment, you can eliminate these discontent feelings. Because if the cause is craving, desire, attachment, explained in the second noble truth, and you can verify that, then the elimination is to eliminate the craving, desire, attachment. That's what trains the mind to eliminate and eradicate discontentedness. The Buddha gives you breathing mindfulness meditation and generosity as two teachings, which you're going to learn in this retreat about how to eliminate cravings, desires, attachments. That's how you specifically go in to eliminate these. But the real solution, the entire solution, is described in the fourth noble truth. The fourth noble truth is that the path to eliminating discontentedness is the Eightfold Path. That's the complete perfect plan. There's 8 individual factors that you dial in closer and closer, and this is what trains the mind to get to enlightenment. While you do need to eliminate craving, desire, attachment, it's the Eightfold Path that's going to teach you how to do that. So the 8 steps are the 8 factors that you learn, and then you train your mind with these 8 factors. That's what's going to train you to eliminate the craving, desire, attachment. So this is like a window into understanding the unenlightened mind. This is helping you peer in to see exactly what's causing these discontent feelings, because if you don't understand what's causing it, then you wouldn't actually be able to eliminate it. So now the way that you might have been functioning, because we all function this way, is you might blame other people for the feelings that you experience. This is normal in the unenlightened state. And you might be bitter and harsh and hostile. And you might push people away. And you might put your expectations on people. But now what you would like to slowly start doing to practice this is to start going inward and start looking inward. That when you get angry, when you get frustrated, when you get agitated, when you get annoyed, any of those discontent feelings, start looking inward and trying to figure out, what is it? What are the cravings? What are the desires? What's the longing? What's the yearning? What does the mind want in this situation? And it's not getting it. Sometimes these cravings, desires, attachments, they're so spread out over a long period of time that you don't even realize it. That's what a Buddha does. A Buddha figures this out and then explains it to you so you can understand it. So let's take this example. Let's just say that you wanted a brand new job and you were chasing this brand new job, thinking this brand new job was going to solve all your problems in life. And if you just have this brand new job, that's all that you need in life and everything will be perfect. So you chase and chase and chase and chase after this brand new job. And let's just say you get it. Right? And it's the perfect job. It's like the best location, the best title, the best salary, the great coworkers, great company. And now you're just so happy and so excited you got this job. But now, because of those pleasant feelings were created, that means you're going to experience painful feelings at some point. As soon as you allow the mind to get a conditioned pleasant feeling, you're only a matter of time before you get a conditioned painful feeling, because those conditions that you formed your pleasant feelings on, they're not permanent. So that means your pleasant feelings are not permanent. So now when you got that job and you got so excited and so elated because you got that brand new job, now 3 years later, 5 years later, you get laid off. The company is downsizing, or the company goes out of business, or you get fired. Or maybe the company moves to another location and you can't move to that location. It's too far away. And now you're sad. Now you're angry. Now you're frustrated. This is spread apart so far from each other, you don't even recognize that 5 years later, you're experiencing anger because of the craving that you had 5 years before, and you allowed the mind to form this conditioned pleasant feeling, and it sets you up that now 5 years later, you're going to experience painful feelings. So sometimes these are spread apart so far from each other, you don't even see what's happening in the mind. And that's what a Buddha is doing for you, is explaining that for you so you can now see it. And now you can start training your mind to eradicate this. Tomorrow, I'm going to explain to you the Eightfold Path. I'm going to use the words of the Buddha, and I'm going to walk you through step by step and show you how to train your mind to eradicate craving, desire, attachment, and eliminate it from the mind. So this Eightfold Path, it's organized into 8 steps or 8 factors, and then there's 3 categories that it's organized in. There's the wisdom section, the moral conduct section, and then there's the mental discipline section. The wisdom section starts with right view. That's what I just taught you, which is right view. Right view is that your mind is causing its own discontentedness. Wrong view would be other people are causing your mind to be discontent. Other people are causing you to be angry. It's something external that's causing you to be angry. That would be wrong view. That's a misperception. That's a misunderstanding. That's confusion. And this is why you'll stay stuck in that continuous cycle of being angry and frustrated over and over and over again, because your mind hasn't awoke to the wisdom of what true reality is. But when you can see the wisdom and independently verify what I share with you in the Four Noble Truths, you can establish right view, where you finally understand what's causing these feelings so that then you can eliminate them. So what right view is accepting responsibility and accountability for your own feelings and the things that are happening in your life. Whereas if you continue to blame other people with wrong view, you'll never fix it. You just continue to stay stuck over and over and over again. So this whole Eightfold Path is built on right view, that you need to establish right view to realize that it's your mind that needs to be trained. Because if you continue to have wrong view, you might try to go around and put your expectations on people and train other people to do things your way. And this doesn't work, because there's 8 billion people in the world, and you can't train 8 billion people to do things your way. You can only train one mind, and that's going to be challenging enough, which is your own mind, right? So other people around you can't do things your way permanently, because of the universal truth of impermanence. It's just not possible. So if you can train your mind to understand this world around you, and that starts with accepting responsibility and accountability for your feelings, understanding that your mind is causing these itself, now you can implement the real solutions and get to a real result, because you're understanding what the problem is. But if you don't understand what the problem and the cause of that problem is, you wouldn't be able to fix it. So everything that you're learning on the path to enlightenment is built on the foundation of right view. Then all these other steps I'm going to teach you one by one using the words of the Buddha tomorrow. You see the moral conduct here. The reason why that's in there is that as long as you're causing harm through your speech, your actions, and your livelihood, that harm is going to come back to you. The Buddha didn't teach rules and commandments. He's not teaching you in that way. He's showing you these natural laws. He's showing you that when you do certain things in terms of your moral conduct, in terms of speech, actions, and livelihood, when you're causing harm, that harm comes back to you. So the moral conduct that he's teaching you, he's not trying to convince you to do anything. He's not giving you a bunch of rules. He's showing you the wisdom behind this natural law, that based on decisions that you make, they can either be wise, that produce wholesome results, or they can be unwise, that produce unwholesome results. So when you're experiencing certain unwholesome results in your life, this is from decisions that you're making. But when you can arise wisdom of this natural law, you'll make wise decisions that produce wholesome results. So we're going to go through and talk about this, and I'll use various examples tomorrow. Then we're going to describe the mental discipline, where you're learning how to train the mind, not only in meditation, but in daily life too. So that's why I like these excursions that we're going out on. Who knows what might happen when we go on an excursion. We might get a flat tire on the way. We might get pulled over by the police. We might get to the place and the place is closed. You know, we had that happen last retreat. One time we went to one of the excursions and the place was closed. You know, we showed up at like 3:00 in the afternoon and it was closed. And we were like, whoa, what happened? You know, so this is impermanence, and people were going there. And if you were craving to do whatever it is that we were going to do, you'd be upset, you'd be frustrated. But if you're not craving, it's like, okay, well, let's just figure out something else. And we ended up going to another place, and we didn't go to that particular place. So these excursions are there for you to go out into the world and start practicing the teachings, where you can start observing the mind and noticing any cravings and stuff like that. So the way that you practice the Four Noble Truths is you sit down with yourself sometimes. You might need to have a conversation and ask yourself, what is it that you're craving? And where you're having trouble seeing that, that's where you reach out to your teacher, and I'll help you. So just like you need to build the ability to meditate and train your mind through meditation, you're going to need the ability to identify your own cravings and to be able to see what they are. And where you have trouble with that, you reach out to your teacher and I will help you, because you may need to confirm that you're on the right path, or you may have no clue whatsoever what your cravings are. You just know you're angry and you're frustrated and you don't know why. And that's where I'll help you, and I'll help you see it. And the more you see this, eventually you'll be able to see it on your own. Okay? So any questions on anything related to the Four Noble Truths or establishing right view? If you guys have questions here, if you guys could use the microphones. And those of you guys online, if you would like to ask questions, you can put them into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. Or in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand and ask any questions or follow-up questions directly. Yes, ma'am.
So I was wondering if we're able to completely eliminate desire. For example, I wouldn't have a desire to come to this excursion, right? So how would I have the chance to practice if I wouldn't want to do all the things that help me go through this path?
Okay. So in the unenlightened state, we typically only know and understand to do things based on our wants, based on our desires, based on longing and yearning. That's what we typically know in the unenlightened state. But when you understand what craving, desire, attachment is, you can see that you can actually eliminate that, and you can do things as a goal, as an objective or an interest, as a wise decision. So what craving, desire, attachment, wants are, this is the longing, the yearning, the chasing after it. Like, I want to go on this excursion, and I can only be happy if I go on this excursion. And if I don't go on this excursion, I'm going to be frustrated and irritated. That's what I want. That's what a longing, a yearning, a desire is. That the mind falsely believes that this thing is going to provide some kind of lasting satisfaction, and it can only be happy if it gets that thing. But then on the other side of that, if you swing the pendulum to the other side, the mind's indifferent. Like, I don't care. Who gives a crap, right? Who cares about what goes on in this world? I don't care. That's the two opposite sides. What the Buddha is teaching you is to come to the middle, where you pursue things as a goal, as an objective or an interest. And it's like, hey, it'd be wonderful to go out on an excursion, spend time with our classmates, we'll all hang out, we'll have some great conversations, some great food. This will be a blast. But you know what? If something changes along the way, that's fine too. We can go on this event, we can enjoy it, and we can have a great time. But if something changes, then I can be content with that too. Where you enter into a situation with expectations and wants, that's where you're setting yourself up for discontentedness, because now you're expecting something, and when you don't get that, then the mind is discontent. We had this situation with the first excursion last retreat. When we got back from the retreat, I was like, hey, how'd it go, everybody? What'd you think? And somebody said, oh, it didn't meet my expectations. I was kind of disappointed. And I was like, oh, okay, well, the problem is the expectations. That's the problem. So whenever you do something, you're not interested in having all these expectations and all these wants and things that you're wanting. You just go do something. And the real goal is for us to spend time together and enjoy our time together. What we do and where we go and where we end up, that's kind of immaterial. The real goal is to spend time with each other. So you can do things as a goal, objective, or interest. But let's use another example. Let's use like a career example, because I think you guys can relate to that. If you were chasing after a job and you were really wanting and longing and yearning for a job, if you get that job, you'll feel happy and excited. But if you don't get the job, you'll be angry and you'll be frustrated. So if you long and yearn and you chase after a job, you'll only be happy if you get it. But also, if you were on the other side of this and you could care less about your career and you didn't do anything in order to improve your life, you're not going to be peaceful and joyful there either, because you're not going to have the income that you need to sustain your life. So that's where you come to the middle and you pursue this career as a goal, as an objective or an interest, and you gradually work towards better and better improvement in your career. Whereas if you're chasing it and you're rushing through your career, you're going to make unwise decisions. It's like building a house of cards, and this is going to fall down really easily. But over here, where you're indifferent and you're not paying attention to your career, you're not making wise decisions to advance your career. So you'd always like to be looking at doing things as a goal, as an objective, and an interest. Even enlightenment itself, the journey to enlightenment, you're not interested in wanting enlightenment or desiring enlightenment. You're interested in gradually working towards it, almost like you're sneaking up on it. If you were craving enlightenment itself, you wouldn't actually be able to get it because the mind's longing and yearning for it. You understand?
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. This is a common question. Okay, Karen.
Thank you for this, David. I'm now really curious about motivation. Mm-hmm. So arising motivation or giving rise to excellent motivation, like where does motivation fit into the noble truths? And it might come in the Eightfold Path, but I'm just curious about that now.
Sure. So motivation comes in at the 7 factors of enlightenment. There's 7 factors of enlightenment that are fine-tuning the mind. The first one, I don't have it in this presentation. The first one is called mindfulness, or awareness of mind, where you're practicing the enlightenment factor of mindfulness, where you have awareness of mind all throughout your day. From the moment that you wake up until the moment you go to sleep, you should always be mindful and aware of your mind. But then there's these other factors like investigation, energy, and joy. And you're practicing these whenever you're feeling sluggish or dull or lethargic. You practice the enlightenment factor of investigation, where you're examining the teachings of the Buddha. And then you're practicing the enlightenment factor of energy, where you have motivation, encouragement, enthusiasm, an initiative to do something, a willingness to do something, vigor in the mind. That's the enlightenment factor of energy. That's what lifts the mind out of that sluggish state and brings it to the middle. And then this is where you notice the enlightenment factor of joy start to spring up, where it's joy that is unconditioned, that is not based on any condition. So that's how you move the mind from the sluggish state into this more middle state. But then you can also notice your mind can be excited and elated. So there's 3 enlightenment factors that bring the mind to the middle, which is tranquility, concentration, and equanimity. These are the 3 factors that bring the mind down from the excited state. So as you're fine-tuning the mind with your mindfulness, you'll notice sometimes it'll be sluggish and you got to lift it up. So you practice investigation, energy, and joy. You got to internally bring that up. And then sometimes you're going to notice your mind's excited and kind of like bouncing around a little bit. And that's where you're going to need to calm it down with the tranquility, concentration, and equanimity. And in chapter 3 of that first volume, I describe each one of these factors very closely so that you understand what they are. And you're going to need to apply right effort. Since you already know about right effort, you're going to need to apply right effort to apply the effort to eliminate the unwholesome and arise the wholesome quality. And that's where the motivation comes in, is through the enlightenment factor of energy and applying right effort to arise that. So wherever you see your mind's dull and lethargic, the last thing you're interested in doing is just sitting around and doing nothing. Sometimes you need to rest. Sometimes you need to relax. If that's what you're doing, of course, do that. But if you're just kind of like dull, lethargic, complacent, you'd like to bring some vigor to the mind, like get up and go do something. Put on your boots, put on your pants, pull them up, and let's go. Mm-hmm.
That's very helpful.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, let me see if we have any questions here online. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions online. So we're going to end here. It's 12:30. This is where we get to our first lunch break and our first free time. We have 6 hours here where we're going to take a break. So if you guys are going to go out and eat or spend time reading books or doing errands or whatever that is, have fun, enjoy yourself. For those of you guys that would like to go on the excursion, if you guys can just close things up here and we'll meet outside the classroom at the tables, I'm going to organize transportation and we'll kind of talk about lunch and all those kinds of things and kind of figure out our plan, what you guys would like to do going forward. But I'm going to pick things back up at 6:30. I'll be back probably around 6 or so, maybe a little bit earlier. So the doors will be open at that point, and then I'll start our talk at 6:30 with starting a meditation. We're going to do breathing mindfulness meditation from 6:30 to 7, and then from 7 to 8:30, I'm going to share with you the 3 poisons or the 3 unwholesome roots. So those of you guys here in Chiang Mai, you're welcome to come back to the temple. Those of you guys online, you can join us at 6:30 p.m. this evening. That's Thai time. And then if you can't make the live session, it's recorded on Facebook, YouTube, and eventually it'll be on our podcast as well. So thank you all for your questions and your interest to learn. We'll see you guys potentially at 6:30 this evening. Have a lovely day, and we'll see you this evening. Sawadee krap. Sawadee krap. Sawadee krap.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.